What we're demonstrating here is where you can find the gauge information. The base nomenclature, part number, and drawing number are displayed, and Sean, you can point those out. You have a G number and a D number, and that is how you can identify the base type that you have. This is the part number for the ID LVCM base. And you'll also notice that on the bottom right hand side there are a series of numbers between 4 and 5 numbers. That is the serial number for your base. It's important that this is not etched off, scratched off, or damaged, because we need to understand from the historical standpoint what the base qualified at during our gauge on our bias and linearity study. Now we've set this LVCM gauge up to measure the seat or seal diameter for this particular lid. So in order to operate this thing correctly, once it's been zeroed with the master, which we verified just momentarily, and we'll put this on, and I like to keep the same orientation. There is a roundness aspect to these. And I'm not quite what my value was supposed to be, because it's supposed to be 3.8367 as annotated on the calibration sticker. If I want to change that to that actual value, because I've already programmed it in, I press and hold the 0 set button in the middle. You'll see it flash to the actual value with the P flashing. You'll press and hold that momentarily, and then now it's set to that value. Always operate the handle twice. So I'm going to demonstrate measuring of the lid. This is a dome lid. I'm measuring to the seal, which is why the heads are on the tips. And I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to let it go. That's first operation. You will always do 2 operations before you take the measurement. Second operation, notice how it pulls the lid onto the pins, and it puts it onto the tip as well. It does a slight lift. You'll notice 3.8404 is my measurement. And if I operate it 2 times every single time, we're getting down to within the 10,000ths that it's going to repeat that measurement. And so always twice. Your first one is always when you put it on the stage. You'll notice that there's a bit of movement, and then the next time you do it, there's your measurement. That was the first measurement. Now we're going to have to do a 180-degree rotation to get our second measurement. This is the case with all of the lids that we're measuring with this ID LVCM gauge. So there's 1, there's 2. And we send that data. GainSeeker will take both those measurements and average them, and then that will be the final data point that is recorded. So you'll notice that we've got this thing configured with the LVCM ID for a dome lid. And we're looking at, this is for a seat or a seal ID. So you'll have the heads on the indicators tip and on the insert tips, so that something like this can fit on, and then it pulls it on to the edges and it makes its measurement. However, we do need to set up the indicator so that it functions correctly. So you'll see that I have a master with a calibration sticker on it for the actual value. So no matter what's written here, this is basically just a general label for the master, but this is its actual value as calibrated per CMM. And its value was 3.8367. So I want to make sure that the indicator knows this. So I'm going to put it on. Always push this handle forward all the way when you're putting anything on or off the stage. Orienting it. And you'll know it's completely off right now, so I need to set it for this value. The way that I do that is I'm going to press and hold the center button, and you'll notice that it comes up flashing with a P. So when the P is flashing, I press and hold the center button, and the plus sign will start to flash. I use the left key to start making adjustments to that value. I still want it to be plus, so I want to move to the next digit. I hit the center key, and it moves to the next digit. I want that to be the value that I have here. That's 3. So I press the left or right button to get to 3, because if I press the right button, it goes up and it increments down using the left button. Once that's set to 3, I hit the center button and it moves to the next digit. The value here is 3.8, so we want to go down 2. That's 8.
8363.
1 over the next digit. and this goes to 3, so we can use the right hand side to move it to 3. And then the next digit is 6, so we go down 4.
7.
The next digit is 7.
7, yeah, probably 3 with the 7.
And so press this again until it moves to the next digit. And then I want to go to 7, so it's 3 down. And then the next digit is a 0 because it's not actual value that's reported, so it's a 0. And we hit the middle button until everything stops flashing but the P, and then we hit it again, and now that value is now stored as the master value. So we press this, I should come back to it every single time, and that's the value. So now we're going to change the resolution from having 5 digits past the decimal point displayed. I'm going to do 4. So in order to do that, I want to hit the left mode button and hold it until I start seeing it flashing between the different settings. So mode, other, function lock, select, bar, calculation, we'll get to that, tolerance, resolution, RES. Once I'm there, I press and hold the center, press the center button, and you'll notice it's 0.00002. I want to change this.
Left.
All right. Press the wrong button. Resolution, and then my right button. And now you'll see that I changed it until it's reading 0.0001 as the last digit. That's what I want. I'm going to press and hold this, or press the center button, and it goes back to tolerance. If I want to get completely out of this menu, all I need to do is press and hold the left button, and it should bring me back to my indicator reading. Then we're going to go over our very important function here that needs to be in place, and that's the calculation function. You want to press the mode button until you start seeing the menu change. It goes to mode, other, function lock, select, bar, calculate. Once you see the calc pop up, you want to hit the center button. You notice that it's off on the indicator. I want to turn that on, so I press the left button and you'll see AX pop up on the display and on will flash. Hit the center button and it'll bring up a value. This value needs to be 0.6664, and it needs to be positive because we are if you put it negative, it's going to be completely different, so leave it positive. So in order to change that, I'm going to press and hold until the plus starts flashing. I was pressing and holding the center button. To change anything, I press the left mode button, but I don't want to change this value. And if I want to move to the next digit, I just hit the center button. So we skip this one. We need to come down here, so I'm going to press that so that it goes to 0 and to move to the next digit. And we're going to go down 4, and then the next digit, down 4, next digit, down 4, next digit, and then down 6. So it should read 0.6664. Once it reads that, and the last digit is still flashing, press the center button, AX will flash. We just press, make sure we go through this, and we'll go back to the menu. And if you want to get back to the main menu, you press and hold the mode button, and it should bring you back to your main menu. We are going to demonstrate the disassembly of an ID LVCM gauge. First off, we're going to go over the tools required. So, Sean, as you pick them up, I will call off what they are. I need a 3/16 Allen wrench, a 5/32 Allen wrench, a 3/32 Allen wrench, a 1/16 Allen wrench, and a 0.95 millimeter Allen wrench. You will not have that Allen wrench readily available. I send these out when I deploy the gauge to you. You will get one of those, and we'll demonstrate what it's required for as we dig into this video. The next tool that you will need is a number 0 screwdriver. Do not attempt disassembly of the ID LVCM gauge with inadequate or improper tools. All of the sizes that were just called out are what is required. And we're going to be performing the removal and disassembly of all the components from the ID LVCM gauge. The first step being the removal of the insert. You are going to need a, what size?
5/32.
5/32 Allen wrench to remove the screws from the top of the insert. Please proceed. Go ahead and remove the insert. There we go. Using the 3/32 Allen wrench, we're going to remove the screws from the cartridge cover. And we're going to perform the removal of the cartridge housing and handle assembly. Requires that you pull back on the housing and push the handle forward slightly when removing it. It needs to be removed in one movement, as you just saw. And we're going to remove the piston from the handle assembly. If you'll just go ahead and lift the cartridge assembly straight up, you'll see that there is still a band attached to it, but you're removing it from the head of the piston. Once that is done, you can pull the handle forward and rotate it off of the band, just like that. I'm going to demonstrate removal of the cartridge housing cover, exposing the piston that is installed. So Sean, go ahead and remove the 4 screws. You need a number 0 screwdriver to remove these screws. Do not use any other size screwdriver because it will damage the screws and or strip them and make it impossible to get the cover off. Now go ahead and show the inside. There, you'll see a spacer on the inside, if that's the size that I think it is. And you'll see the piston itself. And we're going to demonstrate the removal of the stop collar from the piston shaft. It requires a 0.95 millimeter Allen wrench. You will not probably be able to get these readily, so they will be provided with every LVCM deployment. And we're going to demonstrate the removal of the indicator from the base. We're going to be using a 3/16 size Allen wrench to do so. I'd recommend a T-handle Allen wrench, a long T-handle Allen wrench, because it does make that a little bit easier. However, we're going to be using the little L Allen wrenches and demonstrate how that can be removed using that method. You need to remember that the base needs to be turned on its side and resting on its side whenever you're performing this. If you try to turn it upside down, you will damage the indicator and potentially the tip. So that is not something that you want to do. You want to turn it on its side and make sure that it's being supported from the back side where the indicator actually is, so that you don't damage anything. You'll notice that there's a washer underneath. It should have fallen out, or it might still be there. There we go. Do not lose this washer. It is an important part of the mechanism. In this step, we're going to remove the feet from the bottom of the base, and Sean is going to turn it on its side. Again, turn it on its side and support it while it's sitting and resting on one side so that nothing can be damaged. And Sean's just going to go ahead and twist one of the feet. They screw in. It's an 8/32 thread pitch, about a 1/4 inch long screw head, and they call it a stud bumper, and it just screws out and screws right back into that position. If it's not 8/32, it will not fit these holes. What we're going to demonstrate here is the removal of the tip from the indicator. You'll notice that the tip is put onto the top part of the indicator instead of the bottom, which would typically be where people are accustomed to putting it. You have to put it on the top in this particular instance. So I'm going to grab a tool to, and this is a necessary step, just letting everyone know. There's a hole down in the bottom on this part of the piston and you need to put a tool through that hole and hold it just like this, so that whenever you do remove the tip from on the other side and you're holding it like this, you're not twisting the shaft inside the indicator, because that will damage it. Sean, go ahead and remove the screw. This is a 1/16 Allen wrench head, and the screw inside of it is an actual metric screw. Should be an M2.5. It's very specific, and nothing else that you probably have on hand will fit, so ensure that you maintain a good stock of these, or make sure that you save the ones that you have. Now that has been removed. You'll also notice that there is an extension on the shaft collar, and that will also need to be removed. And I've still got the tool in place to keep the shaft from being twisted and damaging the indicator. What we're going to demonstrate in this segment is the installation of the stop collar, but first we need to remove the head off of the handle. So Sean, go ahead and demonstrate that. What is the size of that wrench?
3/30 seconds.
3/30 seconds. And this assembles. All right. Now Sean's going to demonstrate how to put the cover back on the cartridge housing for the piston. Now you'll have to understand there is a round end and a square end on this cover. You'll see the round end has the rounded edges, and then you'll have the square end that does not have the rounding on the edges. If you look at the cartridge itself, it has that same shape. There's a round, it's rounded towards the front where the piston sticks out, and it's flat in the back where the piston does not stick out. So you'll need to put the cover on so that it matches that shape. And you also had to pay attention, because the cover is going to have indents where the holes are on one side, and it will have flats on the opposite side. You want it so that the indents are facing forward. And if you want to show the difference by flipping between the two, it's flat. The holes are flat on one side, but they have a countersink on the front side, and you want the countersinks to be up, and the round part, the round edges, to be pointing towards the front of the cartridge, and the flat edges on the rear of the cartridge. And we'll go ahead and attach that using 4. And what we're going to demonstrate now is how to put the stop collar on the piston shaft, but what we're showing you is this is with the cover installed. And then we're going to rotate it so that the cover is down, and then we're going to place the stop collar on the piston shaft. Now with that, the reason that we have the handle sitting here is that the handle is going to be required to set the distance correctly. The stop has to be against these two forks on the inside, and the metal piece or the end of the piston needs to be touching the back side here of the handle. So you'll notice that the stop collar is on, but it's slightly forward of the forks, but the metal piece is touching the back of the handle. And what Sean will do is locate the Allen head on the side of it so he can start to tighten that down. And this is a little bit tricky, but what you need to remember is that if this is loose, the handle is going to jiggle around and create some problems with measurement potentially, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So this being installed correctly is absolutely critical.
You want to kind of push
Yep.
the cartridge forward and the collar back as you tighten.
So the demonstration should show that when I pull it forward, I don't feel any slack. And when I push it back, I don't feel any slack. If I don't feel any slack, then it's correctly installed. We're going to now install the band on the cartridge housing. And if you'll notice on the sides of the cartridge housing, there are grooves that have been cut in, and on the back there's a groove, and on the other side there's a groove. The band has to rest in that groove flat, in other words not twisted, so that it will go down as conformally to the sides and the back as possible, and not create any impingement problems when we do the installation. So I'll let Sean go ahead and install the band. Now what we're going to do is we're going to inspect it to make sure there aren't any twists. And when I say twists, what I mean is instead of it being flat like this, it might be twisted so that it isn't flat. So we want to make sure we pull all the twists out so that that is perfectly flat. This is not a round band, it's what we call a rectangular band, and you'll be able to tell if it's twisted. Now we're going to take the cartridge and we're going to flip it upside down so that the cover is face down, and we're going to pull the band over the handle and put the stop collar on the front side of the forks. And this can be a little bit tricky. Now we're going to make sure that there aren't any twists in between, and go ahead and pull that handle forward while it's sitting down on the table and let it go. And that should be the action that we see if it is installed correctly. And we again make sure that there aren't any twists in the band along the side of the housing. If there are, remove them by twisting the band so that there aren't any impingement points when we do the installation. What we're going to do here is take the assembly that we just put together with the cartridge assembly and the handle, and we're going to install it back into the base. Now, there's a slot down in the bottom of the base that you can see. It kind of looks like an upside down T. That slot, the T or the head of the T, is where the handle is going to be inserted. And then we're going to move on from there. So go ahead and put just the handle in, Sean, so we can maybe give them a little bit of an angle. And then you'll see that the handle is sitting in that slot. Once that is sitting in the slot, we want to separate the handle from the cartridge by just moving them apart as we move forward with the cartridge and the handle in the assembly. You'll see there is a little bit of jiggling that you may have to do. You want to make sure that this is as smooth as possible and we're not having to beat on anything, because we will damage the unit. And if you want to make sure that it is installed correctly, you should be able to move forward and it should pull it back on its own without any friction that's visible. So we're going to install the head back onto the handle. When you have this thing oriented, make sure your serial numbers for the base are down beside you, and you want to put this so that the countersink is facing away from you. So it needs to go onto this head, and the screw goes in here.
With the 3/32 Allen wrench.
Yep.
And then when you get it in there, just hand tight, snug.
In this step, we are going to put the indicator extension and tip on the indicator. You'll notice that Sean has an Allen wrench through that bottom hole that we were looking at before on the disassembly side. So get that Allen wrench. You need that Allen wrench to be held in place so that we don't accidentally damage the indicator by twisting anything internally. So go ahead and put the extension on, Sean. And he's going to hand tighten that and still hold on to the Allen key behind. And now it's time to do the installation of the tip. If you'll notice on the tip, you have a countersink side, and then you have a flat that presses up against the shaft of the indicator. The flat side goes towards the indicator, the countersink side goes away, and then the screw can be put in on the countersink side. And we'll show orientation once he gets those threads started. Getting pretty close here. Now, you'll see that the orientation of the tip is so that the head of the tip is up towards the indicator's actual indicator side and away from the base. So you'll want to make sure that the tip is straight up and down and is perpendicular to the bottom here and perpendicular to the top. So go ahead and put that on. And one way to do that, it's going to have to be done by eye slightly. Until he gets it tightened down, so go ahead and tighten that
You
on.
can kind of hold it with your thumb here, 1/16 Allen. You kind of just want to hold it until you get that snug, or else it will rotate on you. Just like that.
Right. And if you can go ahead and operate it, just show what it looks like. And give the orientation for the camera. so they can see the tip is as close to straight up and down as possible, and that does need to be adjusted.
Okay.
Yep.
There.
In this step, we are going to reinstall the indicator onto the base. So I'm going to show you what orientation you want the base in whenever you put this in, because you won't be able to do it if you don't do it in this order. So I'm going to flip it on its side, and then I'm going to flip it so that the top of the gauge is on the table, and you can see the back, or you can see the bottom of the base from your perspective. And you will put the indicator on after you put this washer on. This spacer washer is absolutely important and cannot be forgotten. It helps in properly orienting the indicator where it needs to be. You can put the washer on. And now I'm going to put the indicator in place. And Sean, you'll put the screw in.
Okay, 3/16 wrench.
And that's a 1/4 20 socket head cap screw. Now, getting it started is always a bit of a challenge, which we're aware of. And you notice on the last step there, he flipped the handle, the long side of the handle out so he could use that, and the short side was connected to the socket head cap screw so that he could adjust it so that it was hand tight and wasn't going to move around. And I'm looking at it from up here and it looks good. And you should be able to see this type of action now. Before we install the insert, you should be able to see this come back in a repeatable, easy fashion. In this segment, we're going to demonstrate just the reinstallation of the screws that hold the cartridge in place. So go ahead, Sean.
All right, 3/32 Allen wrench. Just hand tight. You don't want to over torque. It's best to do the front ones first, and also pull this forward. See how it kind of got stuck. Gets the front end down, so the handle doesn't slide underneath the cartridge.
So we're going to now reinstall the insert that we're going to be using here. This is the CID 3.860 inches. It's an LVCM insert. It's got a G number and a D number associated with it. The important thing is to note, when you do the installation, you see where the indicator tip is on the LVCM. You see this open gap here. This needs to be installed so that the gap is lined up with the gap on the actual base. There's only one way this should go on, and then we put the 4 retaining screws on.
5/32 Allen.